Hello and welcome to the Race to Speak Up podcast. As always, I am your host, Devin Moore. Today's guest is Aaquib Syed. Aaquib is an incoming freshman at the University of Maryland, College Park. In high school, Smithtown West, Aaquib was the vice president of engineering at Smithtown Robotics. For the past 2 years, Aaquib has worked at the Montefiore-Einstein Radiology Center, where he designed a machine learning model using MRI imaging data to predict chemotherapy response. In his free time, he enjoys running and working out with his friends. So thank you for joining us today, Aaquib. It's so great to have you as a guest on the Race to Speak Up podcast. I was actually introduced to Aaquib through Newsday. So Aaquib and I were chosen along with 10 others as the extraordinary seniors on Long Island. So congrats to you, Aaquib.
Thank you. Congratulations to you too.
Thank you. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good myself. You did really good on the pronunciations of all the different words that you had to say. How's your day been?
It's been pretty good, I'm just chilling. Talking to a fellow change maker. It's actually kind of it's actually kind of good seeing another person who's, working to change the world, directly when it comes to Race to Speak Up podcast, being a change maker and working to make a more positive difference. So it's just, and then also you're right at my age, so it's always good to see that. But so let's kind of start off with the extraordinary senior. So as we know, you were selected. What does being an extraordinary senior mean to you?
Well, it is certainly a great honor to be chosen as kind of like the 12 seniors that Newsday considers as changing the world in the future. I know you were also chosen as one, and it kind of validates everything that you've done over the last 4 years of high school, doesn't it? Because obviously you have all these other awards and you have all these other competitions that you won, all these papers you publish or books you publish, or in your case, you're writing a children's book that you might publish. Those are also validations, but to be recognized this on a regional level and get those like congratulations from your friends, peers, and teachers, it really does mean a lot to me. And if it means that my story gets spread around and other people get inspired to kind of also do what I do and kind of also hope to change the world, then that's good.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I always love with me, I love furthering the anti-bullying message to help anyone and everyone that I can. And I can already see, just reading your part of the article, and I know we're going to get more into that, but I already know you're working towards making a lot of great differences. But so going back to something else I said, so you're going to the University of Maryland in College Park in the fall, and I will attend too. I'm going to be majoring in psychology, and I know you're going to major in computer science. So first of all, congrats to getting into the University of Maryland. Are you excited?
Yeah, one of the reasons I chose University of Maryland is because I just found it to be such a good platform for people who are like makers like me, because they have so many maker spaces, they have so many clubs and activities, and the professors and the researchers are so amazing. So I'm really looking forward to attending University of Maryland, getting to do a lot of the stuff that I've been wanting to do throughout high school. What about you? What excites you the most about Maryland?
To be honest, I think, it's definitely a bunch of different things, because I know they have a really good psychology program. And I know just like when I was there, the energy felt good. The campus was like, it really looked diverse. That was one thing with me when it comes to college. I like seeing different types of people. I also know they have different types of food. They have like a lot of different clubs, different things that I can be a part of and really integrate myself in. And also they just have like just in general, they have a lot of things. And I think I like that, to kind of just figure out what I like, what I don't like. And so yeah, I think it's just like a bunch of different stuff. But
Yeah, because Maryland is like a really big school. So I think you described it best when it's just like Maryland has a lot, like period. Like it has a lot of people, a lot of everything, a lot of clubs, a lot of food. And I think that really adds to the diversity, and people like yourself and I, or yourself and me, who really appreciate diversity, really do like Maryland as a school because of that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So share with us from the beginning of your journey. When did the interest in computer science begin for you?
Yes, so I was really my interest in computer science really began when I was pretty young. I discovered a textbook actually about coding, and I started to, like, read the book and started to, like, imply some use some of the coding principles myself, and I really fell in love with the creative outlet that coding gives you. It really is like a virtual world of limitless potential that you can have. So in the real world, you're constrained by costs, you're constrained by the tools you have. In the virtual world, you don't really have those constraints. It's you and the laptop and your imagination, which really appealed to me as an individual and as a maker, and that's really where my computer science journey began.
Honestly, that is literally so true. So I took computer science, AP computer science, and honestly, I like the different things that I was seeing because I was seeing different programs. I was seeing, oh, you type this in and then it makes this do that. And honestly, I like seeing different types of stuff kind of just related to that. Now, I'm no like computer science buff or like what do they call it? Like history buff, but with computer science. But like you know what I mean. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but I like seeing different types of stuff like that because it's just interesting. It's just like, oh, I want to do this, so let me make this do that. You're so right. There's nothing holding you back with that.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah. So and then kind of just going back to something else that was mentioned. So you designed the machine learning model using MRI imaging to predict chemotherapy responses, which
Mm-hmm.
is impressive. Like wow. But so why don't you walk us through it? Like what motivated you to research breast cancer specifically?
Yes, so I've been part of the Montefiore-Einstein Radiology Center researching breast cancer for quite a while now. But the whole reason I even got into breast cancer is because, unfortunately, my first research mentor actually passed away from breast cancer. It was invasive. And that really upset me. I wasn't able to finish my first research project because of it. And more importantly, I lost a very dear mentor who was very close to my life because of it. And because of that, I really wanted to explore breast cancer more and see what I could do as as a self-described maker and computer scientist, and see what I could do to help prevent those deaths for everybody else. So I joined Montefiore-Einstein Radiology Center, and one of the things they had is they discovered a open data set for breast cancer. It's called the I-SPY2 data set. It's a new initiative it's a new clinical testing initiative where they have breast cancer patients and they try different drugs and therapies to see what works best. So in that data set, we had MRI images, and my thought process was if we could use artificial intelligence to analyze these MRI images and kind of output the best treatments and the best dosages and how often to administer these treatments, we could help prevent some of these unnecessary deaths that were happening. And so that's exactly what I did. I used an artificial intelligence model. I analyzed these MRI images, and at the end, the artificial intelligence model predicts what happens to the patient at the end of the chemotherapy cycle, like whether they get rid of the tumor, whether the tumor gets worse, or whether they survive or die. And using this, oncologists or doctors can administer better treatment and hopefully save more lives.
Well, first I want to say I'm sorry for the loss of your mentor.
It's okay, yeah.
And the second thing I want to say is that truly is impressive. Like, honestly, give yourself a pat on the back because just for you to even think to do that and help other lives when it comes to that is so, I think it's very inspiring. Because I know I have friends who are into computer science and they also want to invent stuff. So I think it's really good seeing another youth or another peer, someone my age or someone our age, and they're just working towards making such a big change, working towards and are actually doing making moves, making big changes. So I think that's really cool. Have you made
Thank
any
you.
other what other designs have you made? Or like what other things have you made? Because I know you have a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on. One of the things I'm most proud of is over like 1 or 2 summers ago, a couple of my peers and I came up with this device, like this invention idea. What we saw is that in our school, students with autism spectrum disorder were having trouble understanding personal space. They had a different perspective on personal space was. And they would get too close or stay too far away from other people. And during the height of the pandemic, this is a big issue because if they're too close to another person, they run the risk of contracting COVID-19, and which could possibly be fatal for them, or spread it to their families, which could also be fatal. So a couple of friends and I came up with this invention where it's this device that you can clip onto your coat or your belt or anywhere on your body, and it would essentially give you haptic feedback in the form of vibrations or any other type of feedback in the form of light or sound, and it would essentially alert you if you're too close to another human being. And specifically a human being, like it wouldn't work on objects. It specifically only targets human beings by detecting the heat signature. And the way we did that is, again, if it's in the real world, you have these constraints, right? You have cost, you have time, and you have these all these other constraints. Like you don't want the device to be too big because then there's a social stigma attached with wearing the device. So since this is the real world, we applied for this $10,000 grant from the Lemelson MIT Foundation, and we actually ended up being like one of 13 teams in the whole nation to win that grant. And we ended up using that money over a period of 1 year to develop the device, test it out, prototype it, wire it, design it, all that. And then we ended up presenting it to the whole community at the end of the 1 year. And it was really well received. And that just like seeing those people be so happy that we created a device for the community. And it's like seeing all these, because there are also kids in the audience, seeing all these kids being excited about seeing someone who's just like, 5 years older than them inventing this stuff. Really, it's a really proud moment for me. So yeah, I would consider that one of my most favorite moments.
Yeah, and I can see why. I think that a lot more people need to, when it comes to certain things like that, like when it comes to people on the autism spectrum, I think we need to recognize that more. And you're
Mhm,
obviously doing just that by creating this invention that's telling
mhm,
them, like what's what and how far you are from other people.
mhm,
And also, I know the pandemic just it presented us with a lot new problems. So for you to like take that problem, take one of those problems or multiple of those problems and like really work towards having this solution towards it is a great way to help so many others. And like you said, it's like inspiring others, seeing others in the community or having others in the community see people like you who are creating these amazing inventions and really integrating it into the community. I know I want that in my community too. That should be everywhere. That really should be everywhere.
mhm.
So, but yeah, I really like that. And now also I learned from the Newsday article that your family immigrated from correct me if I'm wrong, Hyderabad, India.
Hyderabad, yeah.
So tell us about that. Like, do you actually can you tell us like yeah, tell us about that. Like tell us
Yeah, so
about
my family did travel a lot, and it was as a result of my dad's work. Whenever my dad's work needed him to relocate, we would all relocate with him, and that's kind of like that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you get to learn so much about other people's cultures, right? I lived for a long time in Germany, before I moved here, and that really teaches you about German culture. You get exposed to different languages, and you get to respect other cultures and also like integrate that into your own mindset, right? And essentially, yeah. But the bad thing is you get to lose all these friendships that you form because of time zones and just the distance, right? So you kind of get used to having friends for 3 years and then having to move and say goodbye to them, which is kind of unfortunate, but it also teaches you skills like making new friends fast and forming those connections and networking skills and other social skills, while you still kind of maintain the same traditions and cultural norms that you saw in other countries. So yeah, it's both a good thing and a bad thing. I'm really grateful that we got to experience all these different cultures, even though it was a little hard for me at that time, because if you're 8 and you have to say goodbye to the 20 friends that you made and now have to start again in a completely different country where you're the new kid again, then that's kind of stressful on the 8-year-old. But once you grow up and you kind of like learn to appreciate the fact that you did get to move a lot, even though it wasn't like travel or vacationing, then yeah, you get to really appreciate what you've done.
That's really interesting. What's something that you learned from that? Like, what's a life lesson that you learned from that?
I've certainly kept a lot of the social skills. I tend to make friends quickly now, and I tend to be able to not be afraid of the fact that I'm the new kid on the block, and not be afraid of the fact that I don't really have a deep connection with some people as other people do. Like other people have known their friends since they were like practically born, whereas I've only gotten to know them over the last 2 or 3 years. So I've kind of been able to kind of shove that fact aside and still pursue these new connections and still form deep connections with my friends. On a less serious note, I've also kept some of the other like traditional or cultural norms. Like I still hold my fork in my left hand like the Germans do, even though there's no reason for me to do it, because that's just like something I decided to keep. And the fact that I get to do that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. So I see you're very motivated to help others in a big way. I know you're gonna continue to do that. Like, what are your career goals?
I certainly there's a couple of different career paths I'm trying to see which one I should pursue. But I think my main one is to eventually go on and do graduate school in computer science. So I really want to get a PhD and then ultimately work or even start my own company dedicated to researching these new technologies, just like I'm doing right now. So I know companies like Google, DeepMind, and OpenAI are having research scientists, which are PhDs in computer science, that research artificial intelligence models to solve certain problems. And that's kind of what I do now, but they do it in a much grander scale and they have a lot more resources and a lot more data. So I eventually want to join their ranks and kind of get to work at these companies or even start my own dedicated to solving these problems.
Wow. Yeah, I can honestly relate to wanting to start my own. Well, I mean, I have Race to Speak of. That is what I started. So
Mm-hmm.
really, just like furthering that and continuing on with the anti-bullying message. I know I told you earlier that I want to major in psychology, and
Mm-hmm.
so like really, just the reason why is because I've always so over the 4 years of me, well, okay, so I started Race to Speak Up when I was 14. So over
Mm-hmm.
that time, even till now, I've met with so many different types of people who have had their own experiences with anti-bullying, or they have others in their family or other people that they've just known in general who have their experiences. And I know that there's always this negative mental health impact when it comes to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
always want to dive deep into that, but I think I need to get more of a understanding, like a school type of understanding and education, so I can even better and further my work and better help others, whether it be through figuring out coping mechanisms or things like that. I've worked with psychiatrists and other mental health workers to really figure that out and just kind of figure out how we can better make a more positive impact in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to see. It's really, I always love seeing people my age who are really trying to make that positive impact. Like when I saw you in Newsday, I'm like, well, first I was like, I really want him on my podcast. And then second of all, I'm like, wow, like with the breast cancer research and creating all these different things and continuing with your work and getting a PhD. And and the fact that you're going to the same college as me, I think that's like a bonus. Like that's a whole bonus because then I get to see you whenever we can see each other. I get to see you on your journey. Excuse me, see you on your journey more and more. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think that's pretty fun to do.
Yeah, the impact of a secondary education or like a post high school education is really like it's really underrated. You see a lot of people saying that, oh, you don't need college to be successful, but I think especially like if you have goals like you and I do, where you want to start your own company and continue on that path, then it really helps to have that deep knowledge of a specific subject, like for you psychology and for me computer science, to really have that foundation where you can start building on what you really want to accomplish, which is impacting the world. And I think that's really nice. And again, it's such a good bonus that we go to the same college because then we can motivate each other and even see each other on different paths, but on with the same goal of impacting our community. And I know that UMB has a lot of different people like that. I met a lot of people on the patio, which is the college group chat. There's a lot of cool people who have such big dreams, and I can't wait to be friends with all of them and kind of like help each other on our own journeys.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with
Mhm.
you. So, well, I have two questions. I want to ask you what's been the most rewarding and the most challenging part of your journey?
So the most rewarding really has to be, that feeling that you get when you finish an essay and you have to close all those tabs, just like the feeling of relief that you finish a project. I think the most rewarding experiences is when those projects get finished. And when you finally get to see like other people benefiting from your projects and you get to finally present and you see all these people getting inspired, all these people congratulating you, it makes the effort of building that project there and like all those long nights that you spend coding or wiring or soldering or designing, it makes it all worth it. And the hardest part really has to be when the pandemic hit, because that really limits your ability to work with each other one-on-one in person, especially for that 1 year where we had the MIT grant. We could not work in person because obviously there were social distancing rules. So we had to work online, and to be able to develop something that's in real life, it's a product in real life, but you have to do it all virtually. Is a little hard. So that really made it hard. We had to do, especially like I can't drive. At that time, I couldn't drive. And I live in a suburban area. So you can see how that becomes a little hard. You can't just walk to your friend's house. You have to start asking your parents to drive you. You have to start like hosting Zoom meetings to do stuff together. You have to make sure that you have duplicates of each material. And oh my God, it was such a headache. But the fact that we still got it done was a huge relief. And yeah, that has to be like the worst moment.
All right. Well, Aaquib, thank you for joining us. Well, my last question for you is how can people find you? So tell us your social media platforms or any other way that people can reach out to you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at the actual Aaquib. You can just have that on the screen in case people don't know how to spell my name. But yeah, and also I'm on the UMD patio. If you go to Maryland, please reach out. I'm pretty active on the UMD patio. And yeah, I think Instagram's the best way of reaching me. And yeah, we can, if anyone wants to talk, then I'm down to talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Aaquib. You are definitely a huge inspiration to all. So thank you for sharing how you race to speak up in your community.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone who is listening. I hope to see you all at future Race to Speak Up podcast. And if you have any questions about the Race to Speak Up podcast, feel free to contact me at racetospeakup@gmail.com. Make sure to follow at Race to Speak Up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for updates on future podcasts. Make sure to head over to my website, www.racetospeakup.com. And also join the Humanity Rising movement. Humanity Rising offers scholarships for students making a difference in the world through service. So visit www.humanityrising.org for more information. And remember to ask yourself this very one question: how do you race to speak up?